All right, welcome to the Cayman Podcast. Hey, here with Samir. What's up, man?
How's it going, Badir? Thanks for having me out today.
Yeah, I mean, like I was telling you before we got on, I feel like when I first started hearing about crypto in Cayman, you were involved. Like you were there, looming.
Yeah, so some call me a legend here. I've been here for about 7 years now, and I remember when I first moved down here, we were one of the very first crypto companies to be down in the islands. There was a handful already, but I realized there was a lot of community environments in the Cayman Islands. Like there's Tech Cayman, there's Cayman Enterprise City, there's all these niche kind of business-related communities, but there wasn't anything happening for blockchain or crypto.
Mm-hmm. What year was this?
This was in 2017. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was living in Vancouver in Canada, and our headquarter office also doubled as the blockchain society for BC. And we would host monthly and quarterly events at our office, bringing hundreds of people in from around the city of Vancouver. And we had speakers from all over Canada that were doing really cool things in the space, that were talking about their projects and just trying to create that atmosphere of networking and education and helping bring adoption to reality.
So what kind of company was that?
That was a payments company that I was first involved with. It was called Coin Payments, based out of Vancouver, Canada. That's now actually a Cayman company.
And so that's what you moved to Cayman with that?
Correct.
Yeah. So why did you come to Cayman? And what made you first come to Cayman?
To be honest with you, it's funny because everybody always thinks you're here for the business and tax incentives, but I had a dream since I was 18 years old of living on a beach. And when I started getting involved in crypto and we were operating in Canada, things got a little tricky. The Canadian government, CRA, and different regulatory associations, they weren't really certain on which way that they wanted to approach or attack the crypto industry. So as crypto businesses developed and started becoming larger, we ran into certain risks and different uncertainties with how our business would be approached by these organizations.
Right.
And looking around the world, there were a small handful of countries that were actually taking the initiative to have a stance on crypto and digital assets.
Right.
And Cayman was part of that short list, along with Dubai, Switzerland, Estonia, Cayman being in the same time zone as Canada, obviously being paradise. It was a pretty easy decision, all things considered. Yeah. But when we got down here, there wasn't much happening in the crypto space, but at the time, there was a meetup, and it was being run by a kid called John.
I remember.
Over at the Kimpton, and he was doing a meetup, like mail out for events at the Lodge, which was a little bar on 7 Mile. And I remember going to that, and there was maybe 15, 20 people there the first time. And
what was that one called? It was something blockchain, wasn't it?
It is. I actually could probably pull it up on the Meetup app right now because I'm pretty sure.
So what year was that? Because that was some of the first times that I had started to dabble in the space. And that's when I remember seeing you. That was 2017?
That was 2017,
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. And then, so this company still exists in Cayman?
So that meetup stopped happening, partially because of... when crypto starts taking off, the market starts going crazy. This is a very much speculative world that we live in, and it starts to get retail excitement and excitement of people who aren't involved in the space. And things like a meetup about crypto starts becoming like the hot spot and the place to be.
Right.
So, we're growing up to 60, 70 people showing up to these events. And when Bitcoin had made that run from $1,000 up to 20,000 and then back down to, I think it was around 3 or 4.
Right.
That build up from 1,000 to 20,000, we're packed every week. People are like, what's happening in the space? We're really excited. We want to learn. Right. And you feel good about it. You're like, I'm going to educate these people. And then as soon as the price of Bitcoin starts falling, suddenly 4 people are showing up to your event, and you're like, where's all this desire to learn and educate yourself? And it just seems to disappear when the price action starts to go negative. And that's always been something that bothers me about the space.
Right.
As much as I am a degenerate gambler at heart, from a professional and business perspective, this technology is important.
Right.
What this movement is changing the way the world works, and it will be or can be valuable to anyone in a variety of ways. So the idea that people are only interested in learning about something when it's making them exponential money and not when it can provide value to their lives, and their livelihood and their future, that has always been kind of bothersome for me, because I've been infatuated with crypto since I found out about it. It just fascinates me in every way.
And when was that?
My first introduction to crypto was actually around 2015. I had heard about Bitcoin earlier on, but never really paid too much attention to it. I had a background in financial management and computer science, but I dropped out before I got my degree. I just kind of lost focus, wasn't interested in pursuing a career down either of those paths. So I got a really lucrative job opportunity bartending at one of the probably highest paid properties in Vancouver. And I just couldn't say no. So I jumped on that, and I bartended for about 9 years. And over the course of that time, like, I remember there were various events and conferences. I worked at banquets at the Four Seasons Hotel, and there were tech conferences and digital, like digital asset events. And we even had regulars that would come to our bars that were involved in Bitcoin mining.
So you're Bitcoin bartending and you're like watching this all unfold.
I'm hearing people talk about it. I'm seeing people with like all this money that came out. It seems to have come out of nowhere, right? And I'm hearing like, hey, this is mathematically empowered financial system in the digital world. Computers mining it. I'm like, this is all of the stuff I've been educated in, I loved, and could never find like a fit for myself professionally. And I'm like, now I'm finding something I love and I'm interested in that happens to fit in with my educational background. And I'm at a point in my life where I made a bunch of cash bartending. I've had a good time, but I'm ready to progress in my career and do something on a different scale. And an opportunity just fell into my lap. Canada's been at the forefront in innovation of the digital asset space since the beginning. I don't know if you're aware, but Ethereum was founded in Canada at a blockchain meetup in Toronto.
Is that right? Ethereum was?
Yeah.
Okay.
And many.
Is that where Vitalik was?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Vitalik, Anthony Diorio, a few of the others.
Cool.
And this lovely woman by the name of Tracy Leparulo, who organized one of the first meetups that Ethereum was founded at as a hackathon. And she still coordinates events to this day. Just awesome, the power of community. Like that's kind of why I've always gotten into this event side of things, because hosting these meetups, like, that's where magic happens. Creating a forum for people to have these discussions and exchange thoughts, and that's where innovation is born.
So let me ask you, right? Like, it sounds like you're saying, because I haven't experienced, this is going to be my first bull run. So I got in luckily at the bottom of the bear market when FTX crashed. That's when I first got into this. So I've heard that when the price goes up, people get more excited. All right. And maybe I've seen it a little bit since the beginning of the year. Right. But I haven't really seen what happens after that when you get another bear market and everyone drops off. And it sounds like you've seen maybe a few of those, and it kind of annoys you. Because what it signifies is that people aren't in it for the real value that lies behind it, right?
Yeah, well, let me be clear with that. It's specifically your average person, like your retail consumer, that I'm referring to in that sense.
Right.
One of the very interesting things that happens in bear markets is a lot of crypto companies end up very well capitalized throughout a bull run, because you're liquidating assets as the prices are going up and protecting yourself from anything that could happen in the short-term future.
Right.
So during a bear market, when all the hype and the buzz dies down and people stop going a little crazy for a little bit, it gives a lot of the better companies time to really focus on and build out their products and be ready to release these to the market.
Right.
But you never know like what people are going to go for. Like, if you're looking in this bull run, you're seeing these tokens like Dog Whiff Hat. You know, like, you're talking about billions of dollars in liquidity every 24 hours, over $5 billion market cap. Like, these are making, multimillionaires overnight. And it's funny because there's two ways to look at this whole meme culture thing, right? There's one being like, oh, it's a Ponzi, all these people are idiots, they're all going to lose their money, which of course there's an argument for.
Right.
But realistically, crypto has always found its strength because of its community, because of its believers, because of the people who opt into a financial system that is out of the ordinary. You know,
opt in, I think, is the key phrase there.
Absolutely, man. Like you know what the biggest driver was for me to get into crypto in the first place? I made a fortune for myself when I was bartending the Vancouver Olympics. The Winter Olympics happened in Canada back in 2010. I was working like 16 hours a day, raking in money. And at the end of this 3-week stint, I had like made more money than I'd ever seen in my life at that time. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to splurge a little bit. I want to buy a boat. And I go to the bank to take out cash because I found this boat online for like $15,000. I'm like, okay, I got to drive to Seattle, pick up this boat. It just happened to be way cheaper there. And I go to the bank and I'm like, hey, I need $15,000 cash. And I'm planning to drive to Seattle this afternoon. And they look at me like, sorry, sir, we can't do that. If you'd like that amount of withdrawal, you can fill out this slip and set an appointment and we can give it to you in, I think it was 2 days or something.
Right.
And I'm looking at this woman like incredulously like, okay, so I just worked my ass off for the last 3 weeks, pulling in $1,000 a day into this account. And you're telling me that money's not mine immediately when I want it?
Right.
She's like, oh, well, sir, we could give you a bank draft, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm going to Seattle to pay some guy cash to buy his boat, right? Like, I need cash right now.
Right.
So that was the moment that clicked in my head. I'm like, something's wrong. And when people look at meme culture and say, hey, dog with hat, that's a Ponzi scheme. Well, you know what? I hate to tell you this, but everything's a Ponzi.
Right.
Everything you know as a form of finance is a Ponzi at its core.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, the reason the bank has controls on this, as much as they'll tell you it's for your safety, it's not. It's for their safety.
Right.
The whole Federal Reserve fractionalized system, the U.S. is really spearheaded, but like exists in many countries.
Right.
Like these banks are capitalized well below what most people think. Like I remember, I always knew that banks didn't have to have all their money in their vault.
Right.
But I thought in my head either it was backed by gold or they had to have like, you know, let's say 50% or something along those lines.
You had more trust.
And then as I started to research, I'm like, oh, like some banks are allowed to operate with 5% of reserve.
Right.
That's interesting. Right. So this is magic internet money. Wait a minute, what? The further and further you dig into it, and like especially with COVID and all the other things that are happening,
right?
I know when I had my bank reject me for this instant withdrawal of cash, their reserve requirement was somewhere between 1% and 3% at the time, which after COVID is zero.
Wow.
Zero.
Wow.
Right? So you want to talk about a Ponzi, these controls are in place because if everybody showed up to the bank and wanted to pull out their cash, it just doesn't exist.
Right.
And sure, there's insurance and there's other government controls for this. There's money printing. There's other things you can do, but now you're inflating the money, devaluing the currency. It's an end, right?
So do more people know this facade now? Because I feel like you're saying, so many people are going to drop off in the bear market. So people still are living in that system of, yeah, you know, it's all fine. The banks are fine. Everything's fine. There's no debt. We're not inflating the currency. Like, what are you guys talking about? Shut up. Like, that's not happening. Like, are more people seeing this? Because I mean, it took me, you know, I'm only a year in, but I see it now.
I think you see that every day right now when you go to the pump to fill up gas, when you go to the grocery store to buy milk, when you're trying to get vegetables at the farmer's market. I went and got a tomato the other day. It was $4 for just one little tomato. I'm like, what is going on? That is the direct result of irresponsible fiscal management by the government of federal currencies.
Right. It's pretty insane. I mean, it's like a game. It's like it's not even real. It's like clown world, you know, to use the meme that I see all the time. I see a lot of those meme coins on Twitter. Like when I'm scrolling through Twitter, I see them pop up. And is that what those are? Are those just sort of the initial coin offerings that I'm seeing that are sort of like, this is going live, Like,
to some degree, yeah. I think there's a lot more to it when you're looking for a project that's going to be successful and somewhere to, like, you can put your money and be part of something. What I mean when I say that, I guess the original meme coin and the one that most people know of is Doge.
All right.
And I'd love to talk about Doge.
Is that still around?
Doge is absolutely still
around. I just found out the other day that was proof of work. Is that still proof of work?
Yeah, I think it's merge mined with Bitcoin, if I'm not mistaken.
And what does that mean?
So it means any miners that are mining the Bitcoin, the Bitcoin program can mine Doge along with it.
Is that
There's a
right?
few coins that are basically attached to that network.
Right.
Don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% certain, but I'm
yeah.
almost positive that Doge was merge mined with Bitcoin.
So tell me
At
the
least it used
story
to
of
be.
Doge. I don't know. Doge happened before I got into all this.
Bro, Doge was, I was so excited when I started to fully be immersed in the Doge world. When I first got involved in crypto, I was only in Bitcoin. Early on, I remember getting a little bit involved in Ethereum, Litecoin, a couple other obscure ones that probably worth zero today.
Right.
But I always knew what Dogecoin was. I never bought any early on. It was 0.0000001 cent per coin or something like ridiculous like that. It was almost valueless.
Right.
But there was a huge Dogecoin community in Vancouver, where I'm from. And in 2016, the Dogecoin community, which was basically
It goes back that far?
headed up. Oh yeah, but Dogecoin is the original meme coin, bro. A good friend of mine, Gary LaChance, set up a State of the Union address for the Doge community. And it was for crypto overall, but we rented out this huge town hall and had different representatives from different aspects of the crypto industry to talk about what they were doing. I was actually representing payments and like the merchant side of things and that at that meetup. And we made it into a whole 3-day affair that ended with a decentralized dance party. Now, when you look at decentralization and how incredible it is that there's a way to create monetary value from a decentralized fashion,
Right.
I think decentralization can apply to a lot of different parts of your life.
Right.
And bring value there.
Right.
The world's gotten very overpopulated and very not overpopulated. That's the word I'm looking for. The world's gotten very congested in urban areas, right? And I think a lot of people have a longing for a kind of community living environment where you know all your neighbors, everybody's friendly with each other, like people grow things, like there's this barter kind of system.
Right.
I think like there's a lot of people that kind of crave that. And I think decentralization in your life offers
That.
ways to create that. Decentralization of value can create communities
Right.
that believe in something.
I like that.
Decentralization of governance. There's so many different aspects to that. And the reason I bring that up, the decentralized dance party is absolutely visionary, okay? So these guys got a giant FM transmitter, like I'm talking probably 4 feet high, as a backpack with a giant antenna on it, and had that on wheels. Everybody leaves the conference center at sunset on the third day, and they hand out jammy packs. And jammy packs are fanny packs that are retrofitted with speakers and an FM transmitter that connects to the central
Nice.
one, right? And anyone is free to bring their own speakers and connect to this FM frequency as well.
Right.
And so everybody starts going down the street and just dancing and blasting music as loud as we can. And we're going in and out of bars, collecting more people everywhere we go. People look around.
Nice.
Everyone's dressed up in Doge kind of theme stuff. There's a giant moon that we're rolling around, must have been 15 feet tall. And we're just going throughout downtown Vancouver, all around the city. I think it grew from probably 50 people that we started with to at least 1,000 by the end of the night. And it was honestly one of the most memorable experiences of my life. Everyone was sober, just having the time of their lives, dancing their faces off, and celebrating community and crypto. And I remember we were all handing out these paper wallets to people. God, I can't even think about how many Doge paper wallets were lost that day, because people probably just threw them in the garbage, dropped them on the floor when they're partying. And I'm talking like, here's $1 million Doge, which would have been worth $740,000 at its peak a couple of years ago, but at the time was a couple pennies, right?
Right.
But it's just crazy to think.
That's super cool, that party. It kind of reminds me of like a meme or like a virus, just how it sort of transmits, you know, and like that party where people are going around and you're giving each other a pouch that's all connecting to that same transmitter. And
Dude, Gary's organized these all over the world. We've done one in Portugal around an event called Anarcha Portugal, which is also a crypto event out there. And we've done it actually right in the middle of Burning Man. There really is no limits. And just seeing people come together and celebrate and just get interested. Like, who are these people? What are they doing? Why are they having so much fun? What's a Doge?
Right. So tell me, when did Doge blow up? Like, when was the years? Like, what is it now? What's it doing now? And give me a little bit about what Doge is and what Doge does.
I remember in the very early days, a lot of us thought it would be a dream come true if Doge hit 1 cent. Like 1 penny was like for us, And I remember in 2021, the post-COVID bull run, when we really had a very retail-driven environment in the market, and Doge just started picking up steam, and Elon jumped on board, and man, that guy's got a following. Like everything he touches goes to gold, right?
And so he was not a part of it officially.
Not at all. No,
Right.
I think he was just kind of slightly poking fun at it, to be honest.
Right.
And just seeing like, if you watch the guy's Twitter, he likes to get involved with different interesting things.
Right.
He's an interesting guy,
Right.
but maybe he scooped up a bag and was like, hey, let's see what happens if
Right.
I poke this community. But I remember getting messages from like friends from high school when Doge is hitting 10 cents, like, oh, I'm going to buy some Doge. How do I buy some Doge? I'm like, guys, careful. And I mean, hey, it's held that value even till now. I know it peaked at 74 cents in 2021, which was just the wildest ride I think I've ever seen.
So it's never broken $1?
No. But right now it's around, I think 20, if I'm not mistaken. It's hilarious though. It's part of that old adage, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And like, if you can make your work something that you love and are passionate about and be able to like create value from something that's just simple, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of describes the difference between DeFi and TradFi. Is DeFi is more fun. There's a meme culture. It's young, it's vibrant, it's speculative, it's colorful, it's exciting. I mean, it's pretty much everything that the traditional finance system isn't. And it's just so crazy that we're living through it.
I will also add, it is dangerous, it is volatile,
Yeah.
it is risky.
Right.
Sure, fun and memes and all that is great, but like you said, this is your first full bull run. I'm telling you, man, when the bear hits, like the bears take control and the bears come down hard.
Yeah.
They take it all down and go into hibernation, and then everyone's shit out of luck.
Yeah.
But
you know what's funny though is I think I'll prefer a bear market. I think the bull's a little bit too much. I'm just like, I'm not too happy with prices going up. Not at least if I'm not trying to sell. Like I just started, right? So it's like, I feel like there's like, there's more panic for me kind of with the bull. It's like,
that sense of FOMO, like I gotta get in, I gotta get in. Oh no, it's going down. It's going up again. Yeah,
exactly. Like,
no, they say time in the market is better than timing the market.
I just read that today,
and I'll tell you 100% from experience that is absolutely correct in every way.
Right.
The bear market is the time you do some research, you figure out what it is that you connect with, right? Like the thing is with crypto, the industry is very experimental in nature right now. It's still very early. People are asking, is it early in Bitcoin? I'm like, it's very early still.
Right.
Yes, we're starting to get institutional adoption. Yes, TradFi is starting to get involved in the crypto space.
Right,
yes, there's ETFs. Yes, there's regulated products.
Right.
But to be honest, like most people don't know their first thing about how to use crypto.
Yeah.
And even a lot of these new entrants to the market, something that's bothering me about this whole ETF push is you're adopting a whole new generation of Bitcoin owners that are not actually familiar with what Bitcoin is or how to use it.
Right.
Like you've got all of these Bitcoin holders using these traditional investment vehicles that couldn't set up a wallet, don't understand how to protect a seed phrase, have no idea how to execute a transaction on chain, don't know what two-factor authentication is, like don't know all of these things that I think are essential to finding value in Bitcoin. Like
Right.
You know, I remember early on, I would always get asked, what is the intrinsic value of Bitcoin?
Right. I mean, that's still the question. It's the go-to question for anyone who doesn't quite believe, or, you know, like, what's the intrinsic value?
I think like Bitcoin as an immutable ledger is one of my favorite aspects. And like having a source of truth that cannot be edited, that is governed in a decentralized fashion, I think there's unbelievable value in that.
Right.
Like, all of these financial institutions operate in a pretty private arena, right? You hear fraud associated with crypto so much, but the amount of fraud dollar value that happens in the traditional finance space far eclipses anything you've seen in crypto. You just don't hear about it. You don't hear about the time that bank got hacked for $500 million because they're going to sweep it under the rug and figure out a way out of it.
And the amount of fines that JP Morgan's had to pay, like
billions.
I mean, it's crazy.
Billions, right?
I mean, I feel like that's always such a weak argument. The whole it's almost, for me, it's almost an argument for something. If the fact criminals are using it, it's a sign of, like, that's what happens with all technology, right? They'll get on it first. So like, wake up. Like, obviously they see something that you don't, you know. But people just kind of throw that out. It's like, I don't know. I find that a very uninspiring argument about everything. Yeah. So what's going up in Cayman? Like, I know you have, there's a happening. Is it happening or having? There's a party coming up, you know? We're not far from that.
Having. Yeah, we're doing a big Bitcoin halving boat party in a couple weeks here, Sunday, April 14th. Like we were talking about before, there was that meetup when I first got down here, and I was telling you how in that first bear market, interest just trickled away and died. And the guy who was organizing it at the time ended up going away for a bit and wasn't really interested in starting that up again. And for me, like, this is my life. This is what I do. And like having that networking environment is super valuable locally to like figuring out what other people are doing in the space and being able to collaborate and discuss how we can, you know, improve the way that our industry is regulated on the island, and figure these types of things out. So, and
you have another meeting at an outpost, right?
Yeah.
Is that once a month?
That's every 2 weeks, every second Tuesday.
Okay.
So that's where that was born from. It was after these other meetups stopped up, we like decided we needed to get something done. And I was talking to some friends, and a friend of mine owns the outpost, and we're like, you know what, let's try this as a venue. And that just took off. I've been bringing in speakers from all over the world to talk about cool things they're doing. Honestly, it's great to have that community here. We're up to over 500 members every second Tuesday, 5:30 to 8:30. And you know, the whole point of this is really to foster an environment for education in the crypto space. I've also done some work with the Blockchain Association locally. I was a director there for a little while. And you know, Petrie and those guys are doing a fantastic job.
They have a lot of events and stuff happening.
Yeah, but beyond that, even the coordination between local businesses and the regulatory authorities, and working with the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority and the Ministry of Finance, and creating these regulatory frameworks. Like, it's just such important work. Like, I would consider at this point Cayman as the front runner in the global environment, especially if you're looking to set up a foundation or a tokenization offering. Cayman, in my opinion, would be your front runner. I mean, Dubai and Switzerland are doing great jobs as well, but
you know what I've been thinking a lot about is in recent years, you would hear people say Cayman is too finance oriented. Cayman's too finance oriented, needs to diversify a bit. And I agreed at the time, and maybe I agree now, but what's interesting now is with the crypto development, it doesn't look like finance is going anywhere, but it's actually going to be blossoming into this new space that we see happening. So it feels like if Cayman is at the forefront, that's great, because I think this is the future of finance, and we want to be ahead of the curve. We want to be on top of that. So crypto is very exciting news for the Cayman Islands.
It's funny when you look at a place that has probably one of the most archaic banking systems in the world as being the finance center of the planet at the same time.
That is funny, isn't it?
But embracing the evolution of what's happening right now. You know, like digital assets are here to stay. And I think the government's done a great job of getting behind that and showing a forward-looking plan. And I'm really excited about what's happening here. And I think... you know, if you even look at the virtual asset service provider legislation that was rolled out a couple of years back, I know it was very difficult for companies to get their license there. Like it was taking 6 months and like six figures to get.
Is that right?
To get that close. But if you look at what happened in Bahamas with the FTX debacle, like being able to protect Cayman from things like that is so important because one of those things happens here. And everything gets shut down.
Right, right. It has a tremendous impact. I
can understand the hesitance and the care with which this was approached. But if you look at them now, the edits to the VASP coming up, there's a GitHub site where you can actually, it's a public forum for people to comment and contribute. And I think that's so incredibly innovative. And I guess in a country like Cayman that's small, we have an opportunity for people to participate in these types of discussions, like kind of unprecedented if you compare it to anywhere else in the world.
Right.
But I really applaud that whole thing, and I think really good things are gonna come from it.
Yeah, man. Me too. So let me ask you, when does everything become unraveled? Right. We were talking about the central banks, fractional reserve banking, the Fed. The highly leveraged debt. When does this become unraveled? How do you see I love to think about that. I know a lot of people love to think about that. I know a lot of people are like, it's happening tomorrow. It's happening tomorrow. I know a lot of people are like, it's happening in 100 years, maybe. Right? But how do you see it unraveling? Is it just a slow boiling of the frog?
I think all of these types of things take decades, if not centuries. If you look over the course of human history, changes that are this drastic take generations. The empires have to fall.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. Define unravel. Because look at the cost of buying a home. Look at the minimum wage that people earn. Look at the quality of life that some people have. Like, it's not good, man. Like, people are struggling everywhere. My friends all over the US, Canada, in a lot of places are having a really hard time, man. And I think that we are just at the beginning of this and it will take a long time. But I used the phrase earlier, Bitcoin allowed me to opt in. And there seems to be a big push around this narrative that Bitcoin needs to be mainstream and usable by everyone. And Bitcoin's going to replace the dollar, or CBDCs are going to replace cash, all this stuff. And to be honest, I'm not behind that side of the push. I'm all for creating tools that allow for mainstream adoption. But do I think everyone should use crypto? No. Do I think everyone needs to use crypto? No, not particularly.
Right.
Do I think self-sovereignty is something that everyone is not only just capable of, but that everybody desires?
Wants.
No.
Yeah.
People don't want to be responsible for their money. They want the bank to blame if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Like, do I want my mother to have a private key for a Bitcoin wallet?
Right.
Do I want to deal with that? No.
Right. That's one of the hardest things when you're coming in. When I came into Bitcoin was the self-sovereignty of it. It's just daunting. It's like, usually I let the bank do this. But it's like, oh, now I got to do it. Like, that's a bigger hurdle. When I think about it, it's a bigger hurdle than I thought it would be.
I'll tell you, I love that I am able to choose that life. I'm able to choose that freedom.
Heck yeah.
I don't know that it has to be something for everyone. I don't know that the Fed comes down crumbling and digital currencies are everywhere and everything.
Right.
Sure, that it's utopian sounding, and the anarchist in me is like, yes. But really, I don't know. I think as the experiment progresses, there'll be more and more creative ways on how we are able to build value from these digital assets as they interact with our real world lives. And developments in AI and the things that we're going to be able to do soon. I mean, it's an obvious bridge in the future, AI and crypto. I mean, even now. But real world assets, tokenized everything, you know?
So let me ask you, what else can be decentralized?
Decentralize everything, bro. I mean, what can't you decentralize? You can decentralize your finance. You can decentralize corporate governance. You can decentralize community decision making. You can decentralize, you know, almost any aspect of your life. I think there's always going to be followers in any community. There's always going to be leaders. I think we've seen through decentralized token projects that very often people will choose to delegate their votes if they can. I remember one of the first decentralized governance projects I ever heard of, Decred. Love those guys. Marco Piraboom, just absolute genius. But I remember the involvement in some of their votes, and it was just so low. And you're thinking to yourself, like, yeah, people get swept up in this narrative and by hoping it goes up. But there didn't seem to be much of a desire for members of this community to interact with the governance of it.
Right.
And I was actually part of another project recently, FIO, which is absolutely revolutionary. They've built multi-chain technology that allows users to create a nickname rather than using a wallet address. And this works for multi-coin wallets. So for example, with Edge Wallet, you're able to nickname your entire Edge wallet and all of the coins that are on there. You call it Badir Awesome. And that becomes your wallet address.
Wow.
And you just share that with someone and they can send you Bitcoin, Dogecoin, dog with hat, whatever they want to your nickname.
Right.
And FIO also operated in a decentralized governance protocol. It's a DAO in effect, also based here in Cayman. And it always interests me with that too, because the overall involvement in voting was quite low considering the total amount of holders of this.
But I think you're right. Like if there's a reluctance to a sort of apocalyptic turning about of things, it's maybe because of that people just don't want it.
No, man.
People don't want to think about their finances. People don't want to vote because it's not going to change my life. I mean, I don't know. That sounds very pessimistic. But
I hesitate with the way you phrase that. People don't want to vote because it's not going to change my life. I do agree that people don't want to vote because they think it's not going to change their life.
Right. Isn't that why those people delegated their votes? True.
And that's why at most, I remember the last provincial election when I lived in Canada, there was something like an 11% voter turnout. Wow. Do you know how many people in Canada complain about the government? 98%. Right? But 11% of them show up to vote. What do you expect? Oh, our vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. You got to get rid of that mentality, man. And I mean, hopefully in the future, we can explore decentralized governance models that apply to our lives and have communities that decide on funds that are allocated to them based on their personal vote. You know, like that's how I see, this is one of my dreams. I think decentralized currency working in a federal environment, right? And automation of tax dollars on a public, transparent, decentralized network. Okay. And then every community, every province, like right now, the government has a certain amount of tax dollars. They allocate a certain amount to each province. That province allocates a certain amount to each city. Let's do all of that on chain. And let's have every member of that community, of that province, of that country, let's empower them to vote. And now everybody might not do it, but what happens if people start to see, hey, wait a minute, I can see this money going off my paycheck, going into this wallet, getting redistributed into my community, and my vote will help decide where that money is spent transparently, truthfully, undeniably. That is a future I would fight for. That is why I love crypto. And that is how we change.
Well, that sounds very utopian. That sounds almost too good to be true. It's like the government completely transparent.
Technology-wise, we're already there, right? Technology-wise, we're already there. And like I know there's certain projects in developing parts of the world that are exploring types of things like this. But realistically, the only thing stopping this from being a reality in our world is corruption. Like really, when you look at it, the government doesn't want anyone to see what they're doing with their money.
Exactly.
With your money.
Right.
The banks don't want people seeing what they're doing with your money.
No.
And that type of transparency in a capitalistic society would really unveil some things.
I mean, it would just be a better world, though.
It would be a better world. And that's when I look at decentralization, what can we decentralize? Decentralize everything, right? The decision-making of the things that impact your life and your community and where you live, that should be a choice of yours to participate in. Yeah. And like, let's say this for a potential outcome. Let's say someone proposes a use for some of this tax dollars in a small town, right? And let's say 80% of the people in that town vote, yes, this is a good idea. That goes through. Mm-hmm. And let's say this person proposes another thing. And let's say, again, they get a majority vote. Mm-hmm. Now you start to have naturally occurring leaders, right, coming out that represent what the people want on a case-by-case basis. Right. Now, this does take active participation by all its members.
Right.
Maybe when it's your actual money on the line that's coming off your paycheck, maybe then you're incentivized to participate. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could still see people being so lazy. They're like, my vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And, these systems are flawed to a certain extent, but I think allowing people to have that empowerment, should they choose that right, creates a positive future.
And that's actually where I was going to go next, because I feel like there's so much hope with this community and these ideas. And there's the old idea is that the future is worse than the past. We're heading towards a calamity, right? But now I think with crypto, and we see the benefits of it in the government sector and the finance sector, it's like it can actually make the world a better place, right? I don't even know what my question is. I guess my question is, how do you see that future? Is the future better than the past? Is this too good to be true, what we're seeing?
I would argue that the future has always been better than the past. I think right now is better than 100 years ago. I think right now is better than 50 years ago. Look at the advancements we've made medically, technologically, like the efficiency we're bringing to our lives.
And now financially.
The prosperity that's available. Like, sure, there's wars, there's famine, there's all these things that honestly are quite achievably overcome if we really focused their money in the right places. But realistically, there's less of that than there's ever been, right? Like percentage-wise, the world is in a good place. People have opportunity. And like, that's the big thing to look at. Like, we've never had access to knowledge in the way we do today, right? Like the amount of information available just by having access to the internet, it's
everything.
Unbelievable. Everything. Do you remember? I remember growing up as a kid and I was so adamant. Yeah, but my parents, I'm like, we have to get an encyclopedia. I need this information. I remember I read it like A to Z, every single one. Like, I got to know all this stuff.
Right. And that was it. That was like where all the info was.
Yeah. And then I remember after we had like our blue book set, then like, I think Microsoft came out with like Encarta or something, and there was like this CD.
Yeah, definitely got that one. Encarta, is that what it was? I think,
I'm pretty sure it was, right? Like this purple disc.
Right. And now.
But now, holy bro.
Think of how limited that was, those encyclopedias. Now, when we see like what the internet has brought us, like even that was very limited knowledge. Now it's just forever knowledge.
But I think people who complain about the status of the world currently, to some degree, are being lazy and not wanting to take control of their own destiny. And, yes, there are significant issues that prevent people in certain parts of the world from participating in this kind of thing. But I'm talking about more like, you live in the Cayman Islands, right?
Yeah,
and you're like, life's so hard for us. I wish I lived in the,
wherever.
I wish I just had a farm. It's just like, well, life was pretty hard for those people. You have Google, you have ChatGPT, you have literally at your fingertips every single bit of information that's ever existed.
Yeah.
I don't even have to type. I'm pretty sure I can just say, okay, Google.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me something about Bitcoin.
According to Wikipedia, Bitcoin is the first decentralized cryptocurrency. Peer Bitcoin network verify transactions through cryptography and record them in a public distributed ledger called a blockchain without central oversight.
Nice.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
I embrace that. I love having it at my fingertips as much as it bothers me that my phone's always listening to me and spying on me.
Right.
To be honest, some of those like pop-ups on your Instagram, like, oh, you should buy this. I'm like, oh, I actually really want to buy this. It was working.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. There's a lot going on, and with AI and those language models. What do they call them? LLM something, language model systems. I mean, yeah, it's I don't feel you really need to go to university anymore.
I've done a little bit of work with natural language processing, and one of the previous companies I was working with, Alti. I don't know if you remember from our crypto group. It's the chatbot that we had that had real-time market updates and pricing.
No, I don't remember that.
So we built a bot for WhatsApp, Signal, Discord, and Telegram.
Okay, cool.
It works cross-platform.
Nice.
And it allows you to add it into a community environment, and it acts as a feeder for information to that group.
Okay.
So you get real-time price updates, news updates, full market information. You can actually transact in the chat, create a wallet, send, receive, trade crypto, all just by talking to this bot in WhatsApp, and it even allowed people to communicate from WhatsApp to Telegram and back and forth. And
super cool.
To transact through that. And just seeing other innovations like that pop up and just things that really make people's lives easier. I think that was a big thing in the 2016 bull run. It's like, okay, sure, we've made it this far. Bitcoin's picking up. People are starting to look at us. How do we actually use this to add value to people's lives? Right. And I think you're seeing a lot of cool things now that are providing that service. You have tokenized ecosystems where you can earn interest. You have places where you can lend money. You have, environments and ecosystems where you can tokenize even an idea you have, and it's revolutionary. Like, when have we ever been able to create value from nothing so quickly?
Right. Yeah, man, it's exciting. So, I guess we can round it off here. I mean, what's up for the rest of this year?
It really doesn't show any signs of stopping. And that's when I always start to get worried, because I'm like, there's some like beast or demon in the back of my head. Like, something's got to go wrong. It's all going to come crashing down.
Right.
But if you really look at it, right, from a macro perspective here, and this is my third full bull run. And I remember the first one, people were like, oh, the institutions are coming. And you had a couple hedge funds that bought some allocations.
Right. That was scary back then.
Again. And then 2021, like, oh, the institutions are coming. And then you had some institutional grade operators that were providing services, and there was some cool stuff. But then you had FTX and Celsius and all these other assholes who screwed it up for the rest of us. So this time around, when you're really seeing institutions come in, when you got Blackrock, when you got Fidelity, when you got all of these big guys taking positions in the market, creating different tools and structures to allow people to participate in the markets. And you're seeing public companies hold this. You're seeing governments of countries hold Bitcoin. You're seeing a totally different level of money becoming involved in this space. And really, when you look at it, like, I remember our big narrative in 2021 was, what if every hedge fund and institutional investment vehicle allocated 1% of their capital towards crypto, which is like,
feasible.
Kind of like for a risk asset, is something feasible, which in turn gives you, I think it was $10 million Bitcoin. But now you're looking around and you're seeing some high risk plays where people are looking at 3 to 5%. Right. And you're seeing like the absolute low at 1%. What does that mean? Like, the ETFs in less than 2 months have already become the most successful ETFs
ETFs
in
of all
history,
time,
right?
yeah.
Day by day, the volume rolling into these things is astronomical.
Right.
And we're just scratching the surface, right? You have to think that a lot of these financial institutions move very, very slowly and with a great deal of care, right? And the ones that jumped on board first are the first movers, the innovators, the people who try to break that barrier, to live on the bleeding edge.
Right.
But when all the other ones start jumping on board, that's when you're really going to see the scarcity of Bitcoin come into play. Because you have to keep in mind, there are only 21 million Bitcoin ever. Right. And they estimate 4 million of those are lost. So that leaves, I think, around 13 million circulated right now and about 4 million left to come. Right. And I'm pretty sure the ETFs have gobbled up around 750,000 coins already.
I don't think that much.
Including Grayscale.
Okay, maybe it was just the top two I saw had 300 and something thousand.
No, there's 9 or 10 even at this point. And if you include Grayscale, because if you watch the correlation, I don't know if you're familiar with what Grayscale is.
A little bit, yeah.
So as Grayscale has outflows from their fund, the ETFs have almost the same or more as an inflow. But the total cumulative amount of Bitcoin in all of those ETFs and Grayscale combined is over 700,000.
So almost 1 million. Wow.
Almost 1 million.
So let me ask,
that's in 2 months.
Yeah. That's just in 2 months. It is pretty scary, actually. When I saw that number, I was like, that's a bit much.
I'll tell you one thing. I've been going to crypto events all over the world for a decade now. I've made very, very good friends with a lot of other OGs in the space. And I'll tell you one thing for sure. Most of these guys are not selling their Bitcoin ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Like,
well, that's like Bitcoin culture right now.
We've taken the
hodl.
You know, like, I don't see a future where cash money is ever going to be more valuable to me than my Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. It's not even possible, like in a mathematical sense, in terms of what the dollar has to overcome before it can even start to compete against Bitcoin. I mean, it's crazy. There's just so much debt that it's not actually possible. I actually believe, whenever Booth says that the debt's it's insolvent. Like, to even actually talk about it as debt is to talk about maybe it could be repaid, but it actually can't be repaid. And that's a different thing.
Yeah, there's an argument that I think the total U.S. debt is still somewhat close to their annual GDP. So there's this argument that, the GDP backs the debt and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you're right. How is the dollar going to overcome the amount of money printed in the last 5 years?
And how does it ever catch up on Bitcoin? It just cannot.
It can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, for the rest of the year, it looks really positive. And to be honest with you, price has never been something that affects my my place in this space.
Right.
I'm in it for the principle, and I truly mean that. And fundamentally, holding the keys to my own coins, to my own financial products, that's something that's important to me. Right. And I can't stress that enough. Like,
That's so let's just keep going a little bit here. So let's go back to this. Everyone's hodling, because I was watching a podcast today about this, and how then, because the argument was from one of the podcasters was that, well, Bitcoin needs to be used in order for it to be successful. It can't just sit there. It's got to do something. So how does a world look with both of those things, where people are hodling because it's the best asset ever, but it's also being transacted and being useful to people in the ways they need to transact value? Those two things can coexist.
So one of the best things to come out of this past year has been the advancement of development on top of Bitcoin. And that's been something I've wanted for a very long time. I think greed has, to some degree, separated a lot of quality people away from Bitcoin and Ethereum into other projects where they believe their opportunity to increase their wealth is higher, right?
Right.
And so you're taking away developers and quality folks who could be helping to build on top of Bitcoin
Right.
into other places.
Right.
But what we've seen in this past run is, I think it kicked off with ordinals, which are the NFTs on Bitcoin.
Right.
But we're seeing people actually build products on top of the Bitcoin network, meaning that even if Bitcoins themselves aren't moving, there will be transactions occurring on the network.
Interesting.
Because you have to remember, this isn't money like we know it. It's not just money.
Right.
This
It's a
is
network.
every financial product that's ever existed in one.
Right.
There's no limit to the innovation that you can provide on a smart contract in a digital asset environment.
Right.
Right. So you have to think about that when you're talking about tokenizing, when you're talking about lending, when you're talking about all of these different financial tools, all of this can exist simultaneously on the Bitcoin network and doesn't necessarily have to even be related to a Bitcoin itself.
Right.
You have to remember that. Like, there's so much possibility here.
So you're saying ordinals sort of is paving the way for like what a layer 2 looks like? Is the how so? Explain that to me. What is an ordinal?
So I'll kind of approach this from a different perspective. When Bitcoin was created, and as it's evolved over the years, it's become somewhat of a digital gold, or at least as an analogy, that's how people view it.
Yep.
A store of value,
Right.
long-term, scarcity, censorship. There's all these inherent qualities that Bitcoin has that could make it a long-term store of value and make
Right.
it powerful. Ethereum, however, was created as a global supercomputer, right? So it still was a form of money, but the primary goal of Ethereum was for developers to build applications within a decentralized environment. And all of these applications built on Ethereum are what provides value to Ethereum as a whole, right?
Right.
And there's always been this argument that if we can do it on Ethereum, why can't we do it on Bitcoin?
Right.
And you've seen, as Ethereum's evolved, all of the issues that have happened because of this, with
Right.
clogged up networks, with increased fees, and things just getting out of control, you know?
Right.
And I am glad that a lot of that experimentation happened on Ethereum, because that would have stalled Bitcoin a little bit in a variety of ways. But now that we've figured out layer 2s and even now exploring layer 3s on Ethereum, I think we're able to take all of the things that we learned and apply them to Bitcoin in an efficient and positive manner.
Interesting.
And then Ordinals was the first project to build on top of Bitcoin. And they were adding NFTs into Bitcoin blocks. And again, it started from a kind of fun perspective, which I love about crypto.
Right.
So many things start from a fun place.
Right.
But that's actually opened the way over the past 6 months to dozens, if not hundreds of projects that are focused on building out that layer 2 ecosystem
Right.
for Bitcoin. Everything from stable coins on Bitcoin to actual smart contracts running on the Bitcoin network.
Right. I've been hearing that a little bit more recently. Yeah. Smart contracts on the Bitcoin network.
I think DeFi on Bitcoin is definitely where we want to be. And you see things like Thorchain that are approaching these multi-chain DeFi interoperability ecosystems.
Right.
I love that type of innovation. I love seeing, let's collaborate. Let's get everything working in one environment together.
Right.
Like, it doesn't have to be an Ethereum DEX. It could be a crypto DEX, right?
Right.
Like, let's make it work. I think crypto from its earliest days has always been a collaborative effort from the greatest minds in our space. It's been people helping each other, been friends, building together, sharing ideas, pushing a vision forward. It has this like beautiful grassroots beginning that I am so thankful and grateful to have been a part of. It's been a beautiful ride, an incredible journey. I've made some of the best friends I ever could have asked for. And it's just so awesome seeing all of these people you love doing what they love and succeeding at such a high rate. You know, it's just puts a smile on your face.
Yeah, man. And I'm loving that it's happening here in Cayman, and that, you know, we get to see it and be a part of it in our own way. But I think that's a great way to wrap up. So I definitely would love to keep talking with you. So I think, you know, we got to bring you on again. And you want to give a shout out to these events? Tell us about the happening.
Awesome, man. I'd love to. Yeah. And things, I definitely do want to chat with you again. I think, I mean, this one was kind of spontaneous here, but there are a couple things I've realized I'd like to touch on that we'll
definitely. Next time, let's have a more specific topic. You know,
absolutely. Yeah. I can even. Oops. I can even write down a couple ideas, and we can walk through them.
Let's do it.
Yeah, to anyone who's watching or listening today, like I mentioned, we've been doing crypto meetups at the GT Outpost at Rackham's every second Tuesday from 5:30 to 8:30. We have a WhatsApp group. You can, I don't know if there's any contact info there. Can they connect with you in any way? Or
I sure on the channel, or, you know, just hit us up. we'll put our handles in there.
We're easy to find.
Yeah, exactly.
So every second Tuesday. The next one is going to be April 9th, I believe. And stay tuned for our big Bitcoin halving boat party. We're going to celebrate Cayman style. It's going to be live DJs, possibly a couple guest instruments.
Cool.
We're going to have a bar. We're going to have a whole bunch of surprises for you guys. It's just going to be $50 a person, all included. And yeah, I will share details with Badir to pass on to you guys. And please find me if you want to come on. It's
a small island, you know. I feel like they're going to run into us at the grocery store. And like, hey, I saw that podcast that you did. Yeah.
Hell yeah.